Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Andrew Lees, and I'm here with my co-host, Clint McPherson. What's up, man? How you doing?
Not much, man. I'm just continuing, like always. I think we kick the show off with the same saying every time. Just excited to be here. I mean, it's one of those things that the further along we get in our journey with the podcast and with entrepreneurship, I just get excited every time. And it's something, again, that if I can do this every day for, 24 hours a day, I would do it because it pumps me up, man. I really don't get tired of bringing the guests we have on. I really get excited from hearing from all walks of life. People's journeys are so different, but entrepreneurship, when you really dig into it and peel back the layers, man, it's all the same because, we might face something differently, but when you come back to it, we all relate to the journey we're on. But without further ado, and with that said, man, I would love to kick this episode off and welcome our special guest, Mark Willis, to the show. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Clint. Hey, Andrew. Great being with you guys. As you said, Clint, every day above ground is just another day in paradise for us entrepreneurs. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we kind of just keep it rocking and rolling and stay afloat and, do business to fight another day. So, yeah. Well, Mark, it's great to have you on the show today. Before we get into everything, can you give our guests just a quick overview of who you are and what you're all about?
So I'm not your average financial planner. Again, my name's Mark Willis. I am a certified financial planner, but you might find as we have our conversation today that I help people think and live different from the so average strategies that are just not working, patently are not working for many entrepreneurs, especially post-COVID. So in the last 90 days, specifically over Zoom and over phone conversations, I've noticed that more and more businesses are suffering and needing capital. But most of the time, their businesses are tied up in inventory and their personal net worth is tied up in their house or their 401k from their old job or whatever. And they just don't have liquid capital. And you guys know as well as I do, entrepreneurs, cash is like oxygen. If you don't have cash, it's lights out. So that's what we specialize in, is helping business owners, individuals, not just break free from kind of average ways of doing money, but specifically we help folks in becoming their own source of financing, which has been a big deal lately in the midst of the post-coronavirus economy.
That's awesome. And before we got on here today, I was wondering kind of if most of your clients have a lot of liquid capital that they can work with, and you're helping them to direct that. But it sounds like you're really trying to help people unlock the capital that they do have, like the wealth that they do have that may be tied up in a house. It may, what do I do if, that's a lot of people, right? Their wealth is probably most people, their wealth is tied up in their house and they only have one. And they can't, if they have to live somewhere. So, what do? They have to sell it and downgrade in order to really get any of that cash, unless they're going to take a line of credit out. But it's interesting that you help people kind of where they are, and they don't have to necessarily have a ton of free cash to, you're not helping them like, I have $100 million. How do I spend $100 million? It's because that would be easy, but it sounds like what you do is really super helpful for a lot of people.
It changes the conversation from, hey, this thing, we call it retirement. It's this big kind of fuzzy feeling that we all should be doing something. And I don't deal in the world of should, we can should all over ourselves if we're not careful. So let's do something about our financial strategy today that actually tangibly feels better and is better. And it brings not just a solution, go figure, but it brings sanity for the process. I believe that the typical financial plan is insane. Case in point, average American, according to the Federal Reserve study that came out last year, backed up by a JP Morgan study after that, says that the average American, almost 60%, has less than $400 in their pocket. Basically, $400 is all they could come up with if they had an emergency. If they had an emergency greater than $400, they'd have to sell something or go into debt to cover that expense. Now, that doesn't mean we have a net worth of 400. It just means all of our cash is tied up in things we can't touch, which is too bad, because if you think about it, what are our options? If we don't have liquid capital, we have to sell something, meaning our stock or a house or part of our business inventory or whatever. Now, when are we most likely going to need capital? In good times or bad times?
Bad times.
Yeah, bad times. Yeah. When are we least likely to get a fair price for what we're trying to sell? Good times or bad times?
Yeah,
Same
bad
answer,
times.
right?
When we're in a pinch.
When we're in a pinch. Yeah, you got it. And then last question, when are banks least likely willing to give us cash? Good times, bad times?
Stick with the bad times. Yeah.
So the problem is this vortex where we float when the market's good, when business is good, we feel like everything is going to go well for us. It's rainbows and unicorns. And then when the raindrops start hitting our forehead, that rainy day fund is $400 strong, and we're back under the thumb of a banker. And that's the problem. That's my opinion, is the worst place you can be in, because now they've got you. And now you're in their barbs, you're in their hooks, and that's why banks are the biggest buildings in town. That's why they've been around for thousands of years.
Right. I think actually turning it over and having other people dictate how you do anything, right, that's where the problem is. And so if we're relying on outside sources like banks or whatever to get us to where we're going to want to go, it's not really going to happen that way, man. Especially when times get tough, like you said, yes, they're going to take anybody they can, because again, it's easy for them. Now it's also easier for us to get in more trouble that way, right? With finances, and puts us in an even bigger bind to where that $400 might get reduced. And that's still a struggle. I mean, when you think about it, that's mind boggling, man. But I love what you said, and I love how it peels back the layers, and you're really giving people a way to think differently. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is too, thinking differently. So if you think outside the box and you don't think inside the traditional box that we all typically are groomed towards, as far as going to college, having that set 4-year degree to where it's okay, this is what I'm going to do. But now you really can't do that until you have experience. And then your experience, goes by the wayside while somebody, that was in it years before you didn't have to have that college degree. And now you have to really have a master's degree. And then again, it's what are we talking about? Again, you are trying to pigeonhole us, put us inside of a box and tell us what we have to do. And that's really what banks and politicians or everything right now is. And it's just a bad way to be.
I'll even take it one step further. For all those listening who have more than $400 in your bank, first of all, congratulations. You're not average. But I'd even like to suggest that those who pay cash for their business inventory or for their next car or pay cash for their real estate investments or any kind of major capital expense, we're still not doing it the best way. When you pay cash, let's think about this just from a high level perspective. This was mind blowing to me when I found this out. When somebody introduced this strategy to me, the concept of opportunity cost is so huge that it's almost like the water we swim in. The fish is the last to notice he's wet. You know that old phrase? Now, opportunity cost and paying cash is not the answer here to the problem of banking, because, and here's the truth, the red pill moment for me was realizing that I financed everything I bought, whether I bought it through a bank or I paid cash. And here's how. When I pay cash for something, I've lost the opportunity to grow my dollars ever again. Case in point, if I buy a $30,000 car and I withdraw money out of my savings account to go buy that car, how much interest am I now earning on that $30,000 I took out?
Yeah, nothing.
So regardless of car depreciation, when you drive it off the lot and all that, just setting that aside for a minute, how much did the car really cost me? Well, was it 30 grand? That's what the sticker price said. But really the cost was whatever my $30,000 would have grown to had I not bought the car and left it invested somewhere instead. So the real gotcha is we're all in the banking business. And here's why. Either we finance it and we pay interest to another lending institution, or we pass up interest we could have earned on the money had we left the money invested instead. The trap of net zero holds us down, whether we're on the bank staircase, paying some banker, or we're crashing down to zero every time we withdraw cash to pay with the green stuff at the car dealership. But one of the things that really caught my eye and really what drew me into becoming a certified financial planner and looking at this strategy for our entrepreneur clients is that you can literally use the banking function to your advantage. And that's really what we specialize in is what if you could become your own banker and pay yourself an interest rather than it going to a bank down the street? Now you're using the problem of banking as part of the solution for your business life, but also your personal life too. If we're already in the banking business, we might as well sit on the right side of the banker's desk, if that makes sense.
And it's kind of a cash flow issue, right? I love that. So instead of you make monthly payments on a car, but instead of owing the bank, you owe yourself, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you're spreading that out, especially if you can get a zero interest, but a low interest loan on a car or something like that. It makes a lot of sense.
It even flips the script. If I'm my own banker, think about this. I'm a captive customer to my own bank. Why would I go to Chase or Toyota Finance or, whatever? If I have my own bank, you better believe I'm not going to any of those other guys. I'm going to my own bank, which means as a customer to my own bank, I'm a captive customer. Now, what do you do to captive customers? You jack the price up. So I'm going to charge myself a crazy, double-digit interest, whatever. I'll be a greedy old banker to myself because that's just profits to me. If I can charge myself extra interest, boy, that's better than paying cash because now I'm earning interest rather than it leaking out the back door to some other bank or institution. I'm earning interest rather than losing the opportunity to grow my dollars. I'm earning interest because I've reclaimed the banking function in my own life and in my business's life. Now that's esoteric. That's a concept, but there are financial tools that we use to actually implement this for our business entrepreneur clients.
It's kind of like a mindset, like forced. Are you basically talking about forced savings? So it just essentially forces you, if you're paying yourself, interest, it's really, you're just paying yourself more per month. And instead of being able to spend that, then you're saving that. Is that kind of?
Yeah, Andrew, you're rocking with it. There's something that we'd have to do to really implement this strategy. And it is a concept, it is a mindset, but first and foremost, it is a mindset, yes. But there are particular financial tools that are out there that let you do this in a very practical way, which it's more than just a forced savings plan. It's literally setting up entities that you can become like, you might not write banker on your business card, but you can functionally use the banking function using tools and financial vehicles that exist in the real world that are different than savings accounts, different than 401ks, that actually help you do the banking function. And that's what we help set up for our clients.
Interesting.
As a certified financial planner, and you touched on it briefly with your own firm, can you take us back to when the moment started, when your entrepreneurial journey began, and what it is about entrepreneurship that led you to where you are today? And again, I don't know if this is exactly where you landed, right? The certified financial planner first time, and it was it. But let our audience in on that and give us some insight on that, brother.
Everybody's got a story of their wake up moment, when they realized that, I don't know if everyone was a kid like you guys were. Maybe I was. I kind of had the entrepreneur bug as a kid. A lot of little kids, I think, are just born with that spirit in them. Even my 4-year-old daughter, she's sitting in the bathtub. She's got her toys laid out on the bathtub. She's trying to sell her toys and bubbles and water. She's trying to sell that to mom and dad. I'm like, that's awesome. You go, girl. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I feel like little kids have got that spirit, and something about I don't know if it's the kind of I don't know, indoctrination is too strong a word, but there's some kind of like pathway that we all go through undergrad and then grad school or high school even. And we're just sort of said, hey, here's what you do. You go find yourself a business. You go find yourself a boss. You go sit underneath that boss. You don't speak up. You don't you live in the employee bubble, and you hope and pray that 401k doesn't become a 201k.
Yeah.
That's kind of the strategy that most of us are sort of told. And by the way, man, 401ks are not even old enough to retire yet. They're only 40 years old this year.
Wow.
So that to me is like we're in this big experiment. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
If you're an entrepreneur, you get to be a part of a history that's thousands of years old. If you're an employee, maybe 75 years, since World War II, whatever. So I feel much safer with 1,000 clients who are my boss. And like you said, Clint, I think it was you said you can fire people. Was it Andrew? Somebody said, I can fire people now. When you're an entrepreneur, you can say sayonara to somebody if you don't like working with them. And that's not 100% of your income anymore. If you've got 100, 500, 1,000 people sending you a bill or money every month, it's just a freeing feeling. So finally, to get to your question, Clint, yeah, it was a series of just wake up calls that I realized that there was a more, again, sane life to the concepts of entrepreneurial life. And it's a privilege to get to serve our staff that work with us at our firm, our clients around the country. We work with folks one-on-one in advisory role to set up strategies that provide a solution, with guarantees, not just hope and pray. And that feels so good. It gets me riled up in the morning every day.
Love it, man.
I mean, it's such an important thing. And like we were talking about earlier, so many people really struggle with their finances. And it is a sobering, realization that so many people don't have savings, don't have, their wealth is tied up in something that may seem nice, but it's tough to access. So at your firm, what does your ideal client look like? And, like I said, before we got on the call, I was thinking, maybe you were working with higher net worth individuals and, people who did have some more free cash, but, what does your ideal client typically look like?
A lot of times I find, especially in the business owner space, at least half of our clients are in entrepreneurial roles and or real estate investing roles of some sort or another. So we really love working with folks that are on that journey. A lot of e-commerce businesses, a lot of people who are running and operating very successful Amazon shops, a lot of people who are doing quite a bit in real estate. A whole segment of the population keep their W-2 job and then do fix and flips on the weekends. A lot of other people are doing syndication deals. But even if you're just starting out in business, what I notice is that quite often business owners have their largest portion of their net worth tied up in their business. And they think to themselves, rightfully so, hey, I can't control what Wall Street's doing. I don't trust GameStop or BlackBerry to go to the moon forever. I'm going to put more into my business. Because I can control it. I can see it. I can react to it. The trouble becomes is that's a very speculative portion of the portfolio. From
your
a
business,
CFP's
you mean?
Perspective. Yeah. From a
Okay.
CFP's, your business is technically more likely speculative than it is assured that you're going to be successful.
For sure. Yeah.
So what can we do as a business owner who has a desire and a passion, whether you're, doing hair for folks or whether you're selling on Amazon or whatever your business might be? How could you build some assurances to balance out your portfolio, to diversify? One of the strategies we like to use in our firm is something called the barbell strategy. And it kind of relates back to that banking strategy too. So let me kind of explain. The barbell, imagine a barbell. You've got two weights on either side. In this case, one side of the weight is your business. And that's the far end of the speculative spectrum, okay? Where things could go very good or things could go very bad. I'm talking like down to worse than zero, getting sued by clients, bad stuff, So it could be great, 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever, or way bad. On the other side, to balance that out, to give you a strong barbell that you can lift, and you'd need large portions of contingency cash, more than you probably think you should have, in cash or cash-like equivalents, not savings accounts, but something that would give you a decent, predictable, guaranteed return that you can access for any reason, not just for retirement. Yeah, right on. But it also provides a pool of money to throw at opportunities or emergencies in your business. So
right.
That's one of the kind of strategies we've helped folks set up. And one thing that really has struck me lately is a modern form of whole life insurance, of all things. Okay. Life insurance doesn't often get talked about in the CFP world, but if it's whole life insurance designed, not like Dave Ramsey talks about, but cash accumulating, like lean expenses, cut the commissions by 70%, pour a ton of money into the cash value part of that policy. And all of a sudden, you've got 5 figures, 6 figures, even 7 figures of liquid money that you can spend and use for your business. It's tax-free and it grows guaranteed. And all of a sudden, you've got this side of the barbell that's fully filled up with contingency capital. It's an asset on the business's balance sheet. And you can borrow against that life insurance policy like a bank. All right. It's better than a savings account because it's earning, 500 times more than my savings account is technically. And all of a sudden you can use it like a bank, borrow against it, pay for your business inventory or your next real estate deal. And the policy continues to grow like a bank would continue to grow its cash, even when you borrow against it. So to me, that's like best of both worlds.
Interesting. Yeah, I've definitely heard of that. So basically, if you take any money out, do you have to pay it back, or are you then going to be taxed on it if you don't put it back?
If it's designed correctly, and it has to be designed and engineered by an advisor or professional that knew what he or she was doing. But if it was designed correctly, kind of like a sports car, has to be designed correctly to work, right? If you borrow against it, it's tax-free. And then you can pay it back at whatever schedule you want to. Let's say your business has a terrible year and banks aren't lending. Well, hey, who cares about banks? I've got my own bank over here, my whole life policy, not technically a bank, right? But you can borrow against it, throw that money into your business, keep your business alive, and maybe even buy out your competitors because they're all suffering under the weight of the thumb of the banker, So you could even take advantage of growth opportunities in the midst of downturns, maybe go a few years without paying that loan to your policy off. In fact, you could go your whole life and not pay the loan off. If you died and never paid the loan off, the loan would be wiped away by the death benefit. Okay. So that's where the insurance company is made whole. And so, instead of your family getting $2 million, maybe they get, whatever, $1 million. Oh, well, they'll have to struggle on that,
Yeah.
So it's a cool way to kind of use the banking function without setting up an FDIC insured bank and, chartering yourself and paying tens of millions of dollars into the vault. So it's an interesting tool in the tool belt, especially for entrepreneurs.
That's awesome. I mean, that's definitely, again, giving us another way to look at it. And that's, we need individuals like Mark Willis, right? That's somebody that can let us know and give us these additional tools for our tool belts, especially on the journey of entrepreneurship. It not only does it help, I'm sure, people outside of being entrepreneurs, right? But when you're really looking at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, man, I love that. I love how you've actually, like, you're again teaching us a new way to look at things, and that's what we need, man. For sure. Well,
thanks. It really just comes down to, what do you want your money to do for you? I don't recommend everyone just rush out and go get one of those. It's just one tool in the tool belt. There's downsides. There's insurance costs. You have to look at that with a real advisor who's going to look at that and understand it. Too many financial planners are just that. They're just, they printed their name on a sheet of paper that says financial planner. Yeah. And if it's all Wall Street, then how does Wall Street help your business? How does Wall Street solutions get you to your promised land of your buyout or the sale of your business? I'd say if you're an entrepreneur listening, I know that oftentimes it's the fire today that it's just a choice of which fires do we let burn and which ones we're going to focus on, most of the time. But I would say take 5 minutes, 10 minutes after this episode, whatever, sometime today before too much time slips away, and just sit down and just start making a list. Like, what kind of things do I want my money to do for me? What kind of characteristics do I want it to have? Do I want it to be locked up for 40 years in a 401k? I'd even take all the labels off of it. Don't even say 401k, savings account. Doesn't matter what you call it. Just say, do I want access to money? Do I want it?
Put it in a bucket, different buckets.
That's it. Yeah. Just start giving yourself the freedom to dream. We're told to put our money in 401k or house or savings account. And who says? Where's that written?
And just don't touch it. You save what you earn. You have a little bit in savings, but the rest of it goes into your retirement account. But the crazy thing about that is that, as essential as that is to set yourself up, like, you're doing your future self an enormous favor by investing into your retirement, that money that you can't touch for a while. And it's good that you can't touch it, some of it, but there's got to be an in between. And it's interesting because for a long time, I've thought about business as like, I've never been a gambler. I've never been really interested in investing like in the stock market. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't really learn have never really learned anything from anybody else. No one's taught me about the stock market. But recently I've kind of gotten interested in it. And I think one of the reasons I wasn't interested, besides not really being taught about it at all, was that I always thought I want to start a business because I want to control. That's my way of investing because I can control it. Mm-hmm. It's still an investment and it's risky in its own way, but at least like if I put $1,000 into Tesla, and which does that even buy one share now? Or did it split? I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, if I put $1,000 into Tesla, I have zero control over Elon Musk and company. I mean, what can I do? So I've always thought that, like, instead of putting $1,000 into somebody else's company, I'm going to put it into mine. But I love what you said about it's still, your business is still speculative. And it's not a guaranteed thing. And, there's ups and there's downs, and you've got to be prepared for those downs. You got to be prepared for your business not to work out if you're just getting started. And even if you're doing well, you got to be prepared for it to get bumpy at some point. So I think having that other side of the barbell and being really well balanced is super interesting. What would you say to somebody who's interested, maybe even like myself, who's thinking about investing in the stock market, not as a speculator, but putting some money in, either some that I wouldn't plan on taking out for a few decades and some that I might be interested in, selling after a few years?
Well, Andrew, you're spot on for thinking long range. That's the first thing I'd tell you. Good on you for thinking long range. Rich people plan for 4 generations. Poor people plan for Saturday night. I think Mark Twain said that. I can't remember off the top. But anyway, you get the point. Thinking long range really matters here. It'll matter for your business too. If your business is hopping from one shiny object to the next, you're not going to make it long in this very competitive marketplace. One of the key pieces is why do you put money in something for a long time? And if we thought about that, at least I would say it's so we can hope it would grow for our future. Like you said, to prepare for our future selves, to be kind to our future selves. That's going to really help out. There's that old Simpson episode where, Homer's drinking like vodka and mayonnaise. And Marge is like, that's terrible. Aren't you worried about your, future self? And he's like, oh, future Homer, sucks to be that guy. So anyway, you're thinking long range, and that's the key. Here's an idea. Again, using that whole life concept, we call it a bank on yourself type whole life, because whole life insurance is not created equal. But when I put money into a whole life policy, it does a few things. It grows on a predictable and guaranteed schedule every single year. And that's awesome when I look at the volatility in the markets right now. And over the last 20 years, the average market investor only earned 4% over the last 20 years, according to third-party research. Wow. So you put money into a good, modest whole life policy that's doing, middle single digit tax-free returns. Let that thing grow. It's accessible, so you can dip into it when you need to for your business to get those high rocket ship returns that your business can give you. And the money over in the policy, and this is mind blowing, but when you borrow against the policy, it won't stop growing. It grows even on the capital you borrowed for your retirement. So let's say you've got $100,000 in one of those policies, and let's say you borrow out 30 grand to go buy your car or your business or whatever you decide to invest in. That year, the policy will continue to give you that guaranteed cash increase plus dividends on top of that on the entire $100,000, like you'd never touched a dime of the money. And then you also have the 30 grand over here, let's say doing 20% in your business, whatever your business is doing that year.
Yeah.
And then whenever you're ready, obviously you want to manage your policy and not just forget the loan exists, but on your own schedule, you pay that loan off and the policy was fine. It is made whole and it's still earning the same growth as if you never took that loan. So that prepares me for my future without unnecessary market risk. I don't have to learn about what Elon smoked last week and how that's going to impact. Why should his doobie affect my retirement?
Yeah, and it does, and weird stuff like that does, and it's crazy.
That's maybe too fine a point, but you get my meaning. I don't care if it's Tesla or some other stock. Why should somebody's decision on Wall Street affect your future? Where's that written? That's not written in any book I read. So anyway, that's maybe a short answer.
And when you look at it, I mean, it was a great answer. And when you look at it right now, and if anything that just happened in the stock market recently proves that, I mean, really, look, they're in it. The rich is going to continue to get richer, right? And the people that, hit it with a GameStop because they did whatever they did with the hedge funds and everything starts going crazy, they're going to cut it off because, the rich just lost a ton of money. Yeah. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to push the pause button, act like, we're doing this to protect everybody, even the little people that is starting to kill it right now.
Right.
Let's no. So it's one of those things. It's like, man, the stock market, I wouldn't touch it with a stick personally right now, just because, again, the market volatility right now is ridiculous. And I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, even my dad investing in a 401k and then doing his little retirement, whatever he has going on, right? He talks to me on a daily basis about, oh my God, like, it's like everything's gone, it was like, I had it here, now it's gone. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, man, it sucks to be you. It's like when you rely all in something that you really don't have control over. And I know it's a game that we want to invest in. We want to have a little bit of fun. Some people are doing it, obviously, to get rich. Yeah. But it's one of those things, man. It's just, it will stress you out. And then when you just threw that number out, right? 4%, like, that's really what we got to bank on for our future. Third party verify. Check it out.
Look up, guys, if you want to Google this, Dalbar, DALBAR. Look up their 2020 quantitative analysis of investor behavior study. Third-party research, don't have a dog in the fight.
Right.
Equity mutual funds. If you're all in on stocks, your 20-year real return before taxes, by the way, was 4.2%.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, and it's so I actually just started reading a book called The Intelligent Investor.
Yeah, cool.
Which
great book.
I honestly don't read a lot of books. It sounds bad, but I'm always reading up on what can I, little things that I need to know for my business. So I'm not necessarily grinding through an entire book. It's going to be a grind because it's like 600 pages long, but I just listened to it, or I read a few pages last night, and it's super interesting and talking about the national average. And this is back in the 70s when the book, I guess, was originally written. And the average is low, and trying to beat the average is really, really difficult. And so from what I can tell, the gist of the book is not to go out there, and be the Wolf of Wall Street, but to go out to be smart and unemotional, check your emotions at the door, and do the things that are going to, allow you to grow wealth in a sustainable way, and not in some, oh man, if this stock is going down, let me sell it. And what's going up, let me buy it. Those are the two worst things you can do. So It's kind of what you're saying just hit home and resonated with me after I had read a little bit of that book, because it's super interesting.
When was it written? Roughly?
So that's a great question. It sort of skips around because it's like there's been a lot of additions.
Okay.
Updating it. Yeah, Warren Buffett does the intro to it, so there's that, and then there's a couple other people. So it's like bouncing around in different times. I was having a little hard time understanding, but I think it was written in the 70s, maybe. No, it was written in the 50s, I think, but then it was updated in the 70s. And that's the edition I think that I'm reading.
Stood the test of time. And one thing is, and I have, of course, everybody should have a little fun money in the markets. And I always distinguish between savings and investing. And savings is money I cannot afford to lose. Investing is money I can afford to lose. That's my own distinction for that. But here's something really interesting, and it goes back to the entrepreneurial life. So let me kind of do a full circle here, I guess.
Yeah.
So my thought here is, look at what was happening in the 70s. Who was coming of age? The boomers. The boomers were coming of age in the 70s. You look at the 1980s, 90s, through 2000. From 1980 to 2000, the average return of the overall market, not the return of actual investors, mind you, but the market itself, averaged 14% a year. So when you hear Dave Ramsey or other guys on the radio say that you can fall off a horse and get 12% on your mutual funds, they're referring to that data from 1980 to 2000. So now think about what was happening. The 401k was born. Boomers were starting their careers. They were buying into the stock market. They stopped saving. We became a nation of investors from 1970, late 70s up through 2000. And we all came of age, the boomers specifically. I'm not a boomer, but we all as a nation, the boomers came of age during those years. We call it the booming 20, the booming 20. Now, 2000 to 2020, we've had what I call the boring 20. Okay, so this is where the boomers are now starting to age out. They're not aggressive in their stock purchases. They're buying more bonds now. And some of them, 10,000 boomers a day, are starting to retire. As of 5 years ago, they're starting to retire at 10,000 boomers a day.
Wow.
Now, when you start taking that kind of money out of the market, when 10,000 boomers a day are spending their 401ks at the grocery store, what's going to happen to your stock market portfolio? It's going to come down, right? And if 10,000 a day are doing that, what's going to happen to the overall market? It's going to start to come down. So, we've had 3 major market crashes just since the year 2000, and we've had pathetic returns. I just said 4.25% over the last 20 years. I call that the boring 20. Now, a lot of folks ask me, Mark, what's coming next? What's 2020 to 2040 going to be like? I'm going to call that the pouring 20. If you're in the market, because every boomer is out of the market at that point. Who's there to buy all those stocks? We've got rising taxes, rising deficits, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the opportunity. Here's the hope. If you have control of your own business, if you're an entrepreneur and you've got big piles of cash, maybe it's in one of those policies, maybe something else, but you've got big stockpiles of warehoused money ready to throw at opportunities, not just emergencies, then you can take over market share and pick up where your competitors were unable to. When they're begging a bank during a downturn for more money, please give me more money, more stimulus, and you've got big piles of money, you can take advantage of those opportunities and be the best entrepreneur you've been born to be.
I love that. Yeah, that's great advice.
What has been, over your period of time being in the industry, what has been the most common thing holding people back from having successful and sustainable financial futures? I mean, if you could drill it down, I mean, it could be several things, obviously, but what have you seen?
And that's a great question. We could probably grab the Kleenex box and head to the counselor's office, because it's a mindset shift for the most part. It's upper limit problems, I'd say, is a big part of it. And realizing that, we have an internal voice that claims to know what our net worth should be, what our income should be. If you look at your tax return and you're like, wow, I made too much last year, guess what? You're going to probably make less this year.
Right.
And I really do think that upper limits and limiting beliefs are what pull people back down from when they, they're trying to escape that escape velocity of net zero or net, whatever your net worth is. I feel like that's, people are just people. So we're all made of the same, stuff, the same 4 pounds of gray matter in our heads. But man, there's so much, you can overcome those limiting beliefs with news stories and interpretations of what happened to you. When something bad happens, did you say, well, that's just what I deserve? Or do you say, that's my best learning experience, that's my best investment for my future self, I'm going to be a better version of myself tomorrow? So it comes down to limiting beliefs is my short answer.
Interesting. Yeah. So Mark, through your entrepreneurial journey from the highs to the lows, what's been the toughest thing for you about being an entrepreneur personally? And maybe you could share something that you've seen with clients too that's been difficult.
I'll go ahead and put myself in those limiting beliefs categories too. I really think that until you know what the potential is such an interesting word, because when you are starting out in life and someone says, hey, Clint, you've got great potential, or hey, Mark, you got great potential. Hey, Andrew, you got great potential. That feels good to hear that. But if I have the words, he had such great potential, if I have that on my tombstone, that's not so good.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. We've all got it. Right. And it's when you're a kid, when you're younger, you're like, cool, eventually I'll fulfill that potential, but I don't have to worry about it right now. But now, especially like as a business owner every day, you think about, I could really do, I got 100 things I want to do, and it gets exciting, but I've sort of start to shift that mindset into like, not that exciting unless I do something about it. So, otherwise you're right. It's just potential.
I'm reading a book by Darren Hardy, who wrote The Compound Effect, I think, and he's co-authored it with Dan Sullivan. The book is called Who, Not How. Who, Not How. Okay. And it really kind of points to this. So I used to think procrastination was like a character flaw or like a bad thing to procrastinate. But in the book, he really says, hey, procrastination is actually wisdom. It's your inner self saying, you shouldn't be doing this. You should find somebody else to do this for you. So my biggest problem being an entrepreneur is trying to do it all, not handing away, handing off, finding people. It's the who, not the how. How do I get it done? That's the wrong question. Who knows better than I do how to get this job done so I can be focused on what I can flourish in and do the best at?
I love that. I mean, I think procrastination is a very strong suit of mine when it comes down to it. Yeah. It could be to the detriment sometimes, but for a perfect example, this week I had, actually Friday, I had, biggest potential client, right, on the line. But guess what I did before that, right? Like when I first started my business, I'm sitting here building pitch decks, PowerPoint slides, stressing over if I'm going to say the right thing. What can I do, right? Overanalyzing things, really trying to pull back all kinds of layers of stuff I probably didn't need to be thinking about, instead of just going in there confident and letting them know what I can do, right? Letting them know what my company and services, what we can provide, how we're going to accomplish this. And then, man, I get them on the phone and it was like, boom, there it is. It's like, I had to have a meeting Tuesday before the one I got to Friday. So it was like, two-step level thing. I did market research, obviously, and I'm going to do my fair share of the legwork to come in there confident, knowing stats, knowing statistics, knowing how I'm going to deliver something so I can actually sell the person on the other end. But then I get on there and I'm like, okay, well, are they going to want to see a pitch deck? Well, so I was like, okay, well, I'll throw 10 slides together, right? Something that, some things that I can just briefly touch on, and just everything else is going to be organic. I mean, I get through 5 slides and they're like, when can we start? Right? It's just you're saying the right thing, especially when you have, this can be a life-changing opportunity, right? You get on there and you're kind of nervous because, again, I know the ramifications and how life-changing this opportunity could be as long as I deliver, right? And then you look at it and you get in there and then it's just I'm having some of my team members from my fulfillment team asking me questions, and I'm like, look, this is stuff that, okay, we need to actually address the red flags. We need to ask the questions that any red flags in our research that we see right now, I need to go ahead and address that as something else with them, maybe on this in this meeting, or talk to their marketing director and ask the necessary questions. So when I'm sitting in front of the chief marketing officer, I'm not asking him and wasting his time with some questions that probably should have already been answered. And he could well, my marketing director can handle that. Right. So I get all those flushed out. And once all that's flushed out, my team's comfortable. And then my whole thing is I'm good. I mean, I waited probably to 5 minutes before the meeting to put the final dot on the sentence in my last slide, and then it's okay, here it is. Right. And I just use that always, everything I've done, even when I was in the military, right? Obviously going and knowing I'm in a mission, I know things are going to happen. My soldiers know specific things are going to happen along this way. And because none of that changes, right? It's an SOP, standard operating procedure. They know when we roll out, we do A, B, C all the way through Z. So I don't really have to brief them, right, on that. I just go in there, confidently tell them what we're going to do, state the basic fundamentals, the who, what, when, where, and why, and then execute, right? And that's really, we overanalyze to our own detriment so much. We're not confident in a lot of areas, right? And we don't rely, and we try to do it all ourselves. And once we realize we do have team members, or we do have people we can pass this on to that can do the market research and throw a whole bunch of slides or graphs in front of me that are mind numbing, that, it's okay, nobody wants to see this. Nobody wants to read this. Let's move on. Stage left and rely on somebody like a Mark Willis that can actually crunch the numbers for us and then really give us the straight and narrow on how we need to execute this plan, right?
Love it, man. Preach it. I'm with you on the choir there. That's awesome. I agree. I read a quote. Catherine Cook says, "If you're not making mistakes, then you're not making decisions." So just get it done, ready, fire, aim, but have some people behind you to help clean up the mess. And I've learned that you have to be full of integrity. You have to be full of, the confidence, but backed by data. But, if you just sit around and wait till it's perfect, everybody else is going to rush past you and you're going to be left wondering what happened. So I'm with you all the way on that, Clint. Way to go, man. That's why I love working with business owners. And that's why, I am one myself, I guess, but I just love hanging with the folks that are out there trying it. Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, as they say. So get out there and be that business that you want to be, that entrepreneur that you want to be. And you watch amazing things happen.
Absolutely.
And Mark, as we wrap up this episode, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on. If you can leave our listeners with one lasting piece of information or piece of advice that you could really put your stamp of approval on, what would it be, brother?
I'll just say, if you don't mind, a place where folks could find me, and maybe a principle or okay, great. Happy to keep the conversation going. We've got a podcast, a YouTube channel. We've even got a community where you can interact with me directly or other members of our group. Just go to bit.ly, so bit.ly/boy retire. That's bank on yourself retire. So bit.ly/boy retire. And you'll find a way to get in touch with us. Get on my calendar if you want to say hello for 15 minutes. Find our podcast, our YouTube channel, just to see what this bank on yourself thing is all about. It is a brand new way to think for entrepreneurs and business owners and individuals. So if I could leave you with one piece of advice, I'd just say, sit down and write out that list. What do you want your money doing for you? Because where you put your money makes it act different. And is your money working as your employee, or are you the employee of your money? Because it's one or the other. If my money's tied up in my house or my 401k or all in my inventory and I can't access it, really, I'm the one working for my money. But I want to flip that script. I want to be my own banker. I want to be the boss of my money and let it do what I tell it to do rather than the other way around. So that's my lasting, I guess, piece of advice.
Love that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's super important. Well, yeah, very cool.
Well, guys, I think that's a wrap for this episode, Mark. And from the both of us, man, we really want to thank you for taking the time in your day and adding value in what we're doing on the podcast, my man.
Hey, keep up the good work. I really think the entrepreneur is the solution or the antidote to a lot of what's going on in the world today. So go make some more entrepreneur lives come true, dreams come true, and I'll keep up with you guys.
That's perfect. Yeah, we definitely agree with you, and it's been awesome to talk to you today, Mark. I feel like we could have talked to you for hours. I think we might have to pick your brain again at some point, maybe do a mastermind, because there's so many different layers to this thing, and I love that you focus on entrepreneurs. You work with entrepreneurs and business owners, and you seem to have a real knack of figuring out how to help them, because it can be a little different than just like your average person. Owning a business comes with its own challenges, its own opportunities, and having a good solid financial barbell, as you call it, was really cool. And it's a good analogy. So thank you all so much for listening to That Entrepreneur Life. To learn more about what Mark is working on, check out lakegrowth.com. And then you also mentioned the other one, right? So can you say that again?
Real simple, short URL is bit.ly. So that's bit.ly/boy retire. BOY retire.
Okay, awesome. I just typed that in, but I missed a dot. So perfect. So if you like what you heard today, please subscribe to our podcast, and don't forget to download our free ebook at thatentrepreneurlife.com. Also, if you're interested in having us do some mini masterclasses this season, please give us a shout. Let us know that through our website. Please contact us through there.
Thanks for continuing to support what we do, guys, as entrepreneurs. And don't forget to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.